What's up, everybody? My name's Indy, and that guy right over there, that is way over there. That's Jay, and in the middle, we have Mr. Heiny. We're hanging with Heiny today, so we're going to talk about, maybe some packs. We're going to talk about the state of the indie gaming industry, and we're going to talk a little bit about the conference that is coming up starting Monday. The virtual conference, the virtual gaming conference that's coming up Sunday. And there's a bunch of people there. There's going to be PR, there's publishers, there's influencers, there's game developers. It's going to be amazing. I'm signed up. State of the indie game industry is an awesome topic on Alien Arena. Yeah, just started.
Can I just say that I am equally parts excited and terrified about the conference because
it all lays on you.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's been a little bit of pressure. I'm telling people, yeah, we're going to have all these people here. And now we've got over 100, maybe 110 companies that are going to be there. And it's fantastic. And I love it. And it validates everything that we thought, going into this thing, that, it would be something that everybody wants. And now it is. And everybody's here. And everybody's going to be doing it. And it's just, it's
this
fun.
Is the first one. This is the first one.
We've had a fantastic reception to it.
Holy crap. Yeah.
The only downside is that, just due to scheduling, there's several people that have come back and said, we love this and we want to do this, but it's like during their Easter break or spring break or whatever. And
Easter, Keister, Schmeaster.
It's one of those things that, you can only... Given how many events happen in the industry, and you add international holidays on top of that, it's just a bit crazy. You're always going to miss something. So, I mean, you're always going to overlap with something. So, yeah, it's been. I'm stoked. It's very exciting.
Yeah, I've been getting invites and stuff to meetings. You're signed up, right, Heiny? You've been getting messages.
Have you filled out your profile, Heiny?
All sides, so
I just want to put him on the spot.
Yeah, let me see if Heiny's filled out his profile like he told me he promised he was going to do. He has not.
I filled in something, but I filled in the wrong thing.
And Heiny's been put in the princess corner today. You know what? If we had enough time, I was going to give Jay a princess background too, because I have the power, but I didn't have enough time.
I needed somewhere to be, and I chose to take my daughter's new room. So
that's nice. That's a brand new bed for her, and she got little princess curtains. That's cool.
Yep, and everything is purple and
pink
and full of stuff that my mom made that we can finally use, because my mom is a pretty creative person, as you can see.
All you need is some pink and purple backlighting, and then you would have a Twitch streaming room right there. You could be a Twitch streamer.
That feels about right.
So where do we want to start today? I mean, Heiny, you and Indy were both at PAX. Let's just start there. So,
what was your favorite game?
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, let's go to this place. What was your favorite thing you saw when you were at PAX?
That's a tough one, but I just saw a lot of inspiring stuff, especially when I was at the Poland Pavilion, or however I would call it. There was this game called Chernobyl Light.
Yes.
It looks really amazing. They've been scanning around the whole environment, because they used to make the same team made a documentary about Chernobyl, and now with all the info and 3D stuff that they scanned, they now are making a horror, sci-fi horror kind of game. It's really impressive.
Yes, but it's different, Heiny, because I actually played it last night. I streamed a bit of it. And It looks like, this will be like Outlast, but it's totally not. There's crafting. There is where you have to destroy a bunch of stuff. It's kind of like the way that you craft things for Fallout. It's kind of a mix between Fallout and, oh man. And then you scan with this little scanner thing. But yeah, it looks gorgeous. The backgrounds are freaking amazing.
Yeah, I've only been able to just check out how were looking, and the visuals, they were top notch.
Yeah, It was, the graphics are amazing. So that was your thing, Chernobylite?
Yeah, there were a lot of other things. It's really hard to.
I mean, there were only like 500 games there. Some ridiculous.
Yeah. That's all.
I'll tell you what my favorite one was. My favorite one was the game Neon Abyss. Okay, Neon Abyss from the developers from VO. It's kind of like a platformer Binding of Isaac. And I saw it and I'm like, oh, that's cute. You know, it's nice pixely. But then I played it and it's freaking amazing. And I've been playing it every single day. You know, I will like try and do a run. I'll take a break and then I'll do a run and then I'll work and then I'll take a break and do another run. And I've been having a good time with it. And they only have like a couple bosses and this, the stuff that they're going to add into it is going to be freaking amazing. So I'm super excited for that.
What I found interesting, by the way, is also by seeing many developers I've been in the past, and then discovering that they're working on a new title. So I was like, I saw this title was based on. I was like, hey, this looks like Epic Story, but basically it were the same developers, and suddenly one popped up, and hey, Heiny, I'm like, oh, so this is your game. Now it makes sense. I was like, are these guys ripping off Epic Story? No, they're the original.
They are Epic Story. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so that was cool. So too bad, because I also know a lot about upcoming titles. Look really, really amazing, but they weren't showcasing that, so that's why I didn't call it. But if I can give you a little bit of a secret, it's not that big of a secret, but then Everspace 2. Holy, that really looks so sweet, so high quality indie. That it's just amazing. And also talking about, it's a little bit semi indie. I saw Hellblade on the Switch. That porting that was amazing. If you've seen it, that's some serious porting there.
No, I didn't.
So are you seeing more companies? Because I'm hearing this both ways. Are you seeing more companies porting to the Switch now? Because one of the things that I'm hearing in the internet is that Nintendo is actually putting the brakes on everything to a certain extent, and they want you to have a publisher that already has published something on the Switch before you can get your game greenlit.
That's true, and that's kind of interesting now that you mention it, because when I look at the library itself, the average quality has gone down 8 months, to be honest. So there sure have been coming some great games, but also a lot of games that I'm like, what are they doing on Switch? And at the same time, I got this card from one person from Nintendo, and I've been talking with a few people who had the problem that you were just mentioning, not being able to get on Nintendo. So I helped him get in contact with him. He was also in the last Nintendo Direct when it was about Nindy, so it was kind of funny to see him online. And the last person I talked to, they had a fun little game, Pushy Pulley or something like that.
Yeah.
I've seen visually more interesting games, and they weren't able to get on. He was able to get in contact with him and get on Nintendo. So I'm not really sure where it goes. Still, her game looked way better than some of the bad games that I've seen, and it's not a bad game in any way, but I'm not sure what they're looking at if they let on a person individual instead of via a publisher. And like I said, looking at their current library, there have been some strange games hitting the Switch lately.
I don't think that link worked, Jay.
Oh, it doesn't, because I didn't put the dot in there. Yeah, because it's Friday. That's the reason. I mean, it's not going to surprise me at all if that's what Nintendo is doing, because that's what we've seen Sony and Microsoft do for years. They want to get that critical base there, but once they have a critical base, they're like, okay, everybody else needs to go through somebody who's already on there, because it reduces the workload on their side.
That makes sense, because the amount of games is just getting higher and higher per month.
When is their next Nintendo Direct. It's like coming up this week. I thought it was this week or maybe it's next week. They had another one that they announced, but I don't remember when it was.
Mm-mm.
All right, so and I'm just going to preface, we are going to get into the whole Epic thing later, but I want to get through some other stuff first. What about trends? What kind of trends are you seeing? Are there more multiplayer games you're seeing? Couch multiplayer versus online multiplayer, platforms versus RPGs. What, like Indy said, there were 500 games there. So,
or whatever.
What did you see a lot of?
I would say
an exaggeration.
But pretty close. It was a lot.
You were there 3 days. You didn't play all 500 games. What were you two doing?
Oh my gosh!
You told me what you two were doing.
I was there 4 days. I was there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah, I got there Wednesday. So
that's 100 games a day, Andy. Come on, man. You can do this. So, I mean, in terms of genres, I mean, were there anything that you were seeing in terms of, oh my God, we're going to have a lot of XYZ type game coming up? I mean, are you seeing the indie market trying to take advantage of the Battle Royale? I mean, was there any sort of cool stuff you saw there that way?
For me, I would say, but this is a trend that's going on for at least the last 3 years, that there are too many party arena games, so that you're with 4 people on one screen, just battling it out in one way or another. Maybe in the sky, underwater, whatever. Kind of a lot of the same thing, basically. Just one is more prettier than the other. Than the other. And I believe I've seen a little, but it's just a little bit. I think I saw a little bit more fighting games done by indies.
Like what? I mean, because it's like, I consider Subnautica an indie game, and that's a really high-end game.
Well, like the game that just was released was, what was the game? The Fight Against Gods or something like that?
The Fighting of the Gods? Or where
yeah,
you have
something like that. That you can play with Jesus or Buddha.
How is that doing? Because I just finished up a round of Indie Prize judging, and it was in there.
I was surprised when looking at the Steam store that it's been bought by more people than I would expect it to be, and it's been doing pretty well in reviews on there. So they have a thumbs up, so it's in the blue.
And honestly, who doesn't want to kick ass as Jesus?
Oh, Santa is a playable character.
That's true.
Okay, so if I can play as Santa, I'm looking this up right now. What is it called?
Battle of the Gods.
Actually, and then I want Santa Claus in there.
Wait, no, that's not it.
It's based on our Santa Claus.
What is it? I just played it like last week.
Fight of Gods.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, it's got very positive reviews.
It does.
Yeah. I have to be honest. I did not expect that. So far, a good job. And what's their publisher again? So I was also...
P-Cube. P-Cube is the...
P-Cube. I did not expect them to pick up such a title. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I just did not expect them to.
Well, I mean, it kind of looks a little dated, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
The graphics were fun. My issue with it when I played it was the animations just didn't seem...
fluid?
Yeah. But I mean, okay, no disrespect to the team, though. I mean, we're talking about, you look at the fighting game genre, it's not like there's a middle ground in there. You're either, Marvel versus Capcom and Mortal Kombat, or you're, an indie team. It's
true.
It's very good considering it didn't have a $20 million, development budget.
That's true.
But that was like my only catch with it was, the animations just didn't seem that fluid, but at the same time, it's still fun. I mean, it's the amount of characters that you can play, and especially when I started playing and I was fighting Santa, as Athena, and he's like dropping Christmas presents on me, and his hug attack is like he grabs you and holds you and does a selfie right there, and I had a really good time playing it, but it's just one of those things. It's like, how do you
stand out?
That genre is right up there with sports games in terms of one of the most competitive out there on the industry. So it's good to see that they've got not only a lot of very good reviews, but at the same time,
they have
a lot
Jesus.
of reviews.
It's like Jesus busted out of the cross, and he still has the spikes through his hands with blocks of wood on the back of his fists. Wow.
I honestly thought that just the press around this, with everybody ranting and raving about it, would get it a good bump everywhere, because it's just you constantly see this, and then you see it in their Steam reviews a little bit, and it's like, I can't believe you're making this game, I'm just blah blah blah. I'm like, well, then don't buy it. That's just the easy way of putting it. So
by the way, I do know another. Too bad that I can't say anything about it, because I thought I already saw news about it, but it's not out yet. But let me just say that a very old classic fighter is coming. They are making a part 3 of it, and it's so I don't see anything mentioned about it. I really thought I saw it pass by. So as long as it isn't official, I will have to tease you with just this. And we're talking about the 16-bit era.
Oh wow!
And that's all I can say. But it's really a very
hey, just share your screen real quick, all right, so we can see what you're searching for. That's all we need to do here.
I will be screwed so hard.
There goes your NDA privilege that you get everywhere, right? Bam! Everyone's like, Heiny's got a big freaking mouth. He freaking just spoiled everything.
Concerning fighting games, there was some indies have done some pretty nice job, but just didn't get there where it needed to be. But still, for indies, a very good job. But the fighters are very, very strict. So, like the game Omen of Sorrow, I think for indies the game looks really well, but it plays even better. But just looking at it, and if you compare it with Killer Instinct and Street Fighter, that is a hard job. Then it's a little bit hard to sell the game. Unless you touch it, then it feels really, really good. And also a game like Ian Must Die, also a fighting game, although it's a one player every time against a CPU opponent, but oh man, that animation looks sweet. And I just it's now officially out that they will be published by Focus Home, so congrats to those guys. I already knew it for a while, but I wasn't allowed to talk about it.
I think you're just saying stuff. I knew about that a long time. I knew about
Omen of Sorrow was another one of the games that I played for Indie Bros.
I have to say that when I played the game at Gamescom, and I was pleasantly surprised, because the visuals were kind of like, well, it's nice, it's actually very good for an indie, but there's just too much competition out there, so it's hard to do something with it. Oh, by the way, I know another type of game that I've seen a lot in the last 12 months, and it's the sci-fi racers. A lot. So a lot like Wipeout. So you have this like Formula Fusion. That game has got an update, and it's now called P-Racer or something like that. And there are more games like that that have been released or are about to be released. Also there I got this surprise, got some info, but I also not allowed to say. But one science fiction sci-fi racer, let me just say, doesn't look like it, will have a very important update. Which so let me just stay with that.
So, you're killing us with the games that you can't talk about. That's the.
You know,
I just like to tease a little bit.
Never mind. We'll talk about that later.
So in terms of, yeah, and again, I've never been to PAX. I want to go, but I've never been. Were there more teams there this year? Less teams? I mean, how is PAX evolving in terms of, indie teams versus publishers?
For me, it was the second one that I've been to, PAX East, and I have to say that, but somehow that's my mom.
Your mom's fixing up your pretty princess room.
Yeah, she's making the curtains for my daughter. It's so sweet. So tomorrow my daughter can finally use all of this princess glory for herself. So, but concerning, now I lost my track of time. The subject. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, for me, looking this year, and I don't like to say it, but I just like to be honest. I thought the average quality of games has gone down a little bit on PAX East.
Now, were there more games there than there had been in the past, or was it still roughly the same size?
It was roughly the same size.
Okay.
So
the indie mega booth was pretty big. It was pretty big.
Oh, that's true. But overall,
yeah, it's been a couple years since I've been to PAX East, but the indie mega booth was a lot bigger than when I was there the last time.
I agree, but the average games, it was for me, especially with in the mega booth, there were a little bit less awesome games. I noticed because I tweeted less about indie mega booth than I used to, or it's just not my taste of games, or I just don't get it what's appealing, and I can simply be wrong about it.
I know that what's so impressive to me about Indie Mega Booth is it's only like 3 people that run that, and it's a very small team, and they're able to execute on that so well. I mean, were there other groups there like Indie Mega Booth? Because I know there's a couple other, of these groups.
Well, like the guys from Poland.
Yeah, the
they
Poland
were
group.
organizing that. A couple of guys from New York, I heard, but I didn't find out what spot was theirs. There were some others, but basically it's mostly all about the Indie Mega Booth. And by the way, you guys want what?
Oh, we lost you there.
You're an horror story.
There we go.
Because you're now talking about Indie Mega Booth, and I don't know which of the 3 persons that you were talking about Indie Mega Booth. But I do know that last year they were at some different parties, and one of the guys had 3 laptops on him, and they were gone. He drank a little bit too much, and he just ended up without his laptops. And it could be left in one of the locations of the party, or it could be in one of the Ubers that he took. But that was kind of like, ooh, that's smart.
Yeah.
Why would you have 3 laptops?
I don't know.
One for Skype, one for Discord, and one for I don't know.
That's the immediate thought that comes to mind. So
it's one for the replies on
right.
Helping yourself and one to look at yourself.
Yeah.
Were a lot of the indie teams there, were they planning on self-publishing, or were they there looking for publishers?
Well, there are quite a couple of guys were looking for publisher. So I have been talking with some publishers that I know that they were walking around. They're like, hey, perhaps you want to take a look at these few titles. There were also relatively more people were open about it, but it might also be because I'm now more connected than last year that I've been asking about things like that. So I'm just looking if I can help people out.
Some of the devs also had like right on their thing said, "We are looking for a publisher and PR." Big old sign right there.
That is smart.
Yeah.
That is so
Absolutely
smart.
True.
Because it's one of those things that you don't know. I was just getting ready to say, I know several major publishers who go to PAX undercover. They don't want to walk around with the logo of their company on, and so they just go as fans and they check out games, and it gives them a little more time and peace and quiet to do it. So it's extremely smart for these teams to have a sign and saying, hey, look, we're looking for this. When we started doing the research for our online event, one of the questions that we asked was, who do you want to meet at these events? And, given the number of developers that come to me on a monthly basis and say, hey, our game's launching next week and we need, some marketing. What should we do?
Next week.
and I'm just like, I can't help you.
Well, we should probably pay attention to some chat here. David Millwhite says, was talking, I don't remember what game it was. Good idea with Lackluster. Elizabeth is in the house. Hi, Elizabeth. Most were self-publishing or looking for publishers as opposed to seeking big global publishers. Yeah. Hi. I got to hang out with Elizabeth a little bit at the Greenlit party.
I think I know this Elizabeth, but I'm not going to call her out here on the stream and be wrong for one thing. But
for one thing,
what's the other thing?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to call out people blatantly on the show. It's like, hey, thanks for watching. It's. So when we did our research and we asked who they wanted to meet with, we had 40% of the developers come back and say, I want to meet with PR and marketing teams, which amazed me, but also made me feel so much better because we're getting to the point now where these indie teams realize you can't just release a game and be done with it. We talked about that last show with the article from Rami. It's like, this is not a meritocracy. You can't just, the good ones aren't going to rise to the top. It takes some effort. So I'm very glad to see that the teams were out there, openly saying, hey, look, we need a publisher. We need some PR. So, and welcome, Elizabeth.
But there's still those people that's like, hey, and even it's so funny because I even get emails saying, yeah, we just released our game and we're looking for some PR marketing and we're looking to get the game out there. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, what I did notice, I've seen a few more freelance PR marketing people around certain games. So that I did see. So there is a little bit more awareness of the need of help with marketing, PR, and stuff.
And I think part of that too is because it's expanded so much. It's one thing to maintain relationships with the press and keep an up-to-date press list going on, but now you got to factor in social media. You got to have a community manager running your Discord server. You got to have an expert on the influencer side doing influencer outreach and all this other stuff. It's become much more complex. And yes, Elizabeth, that's what we always rant on, or at least I always rant on this show. It's the developers that call in and go, hey, we need to launch next week,
but we don't have any money.
We don't have any marketing and we don't have any money. What can we do for no money?
Well,
post on Reddit. That's
now that you're asking me, it's going to cost way more because it's a lot more work.
By the way, you might find this interesting. That from Delivers the Moon, they were there, and they started around 4 years ago with their game. And first they did all the marketing, social media things themselves, and they did really well. They had a successful Kickstarter, also with the quality of the game. They got an extra 15K from Unreal. So they were doing pretty well up to the point that they got a publisher. And the publisher really helped a lot in terms of budget, but they didn't get the social media that they were kind of expecting. But since they were so focused on the production at that moment and didn't have to worry about it, they kind of let it slip themselves. So at a certain point, the publisher had problems and they had to step out. And they were suddenly on a more cold terrain to get back their social media influence that they had 2 years prior to that. So there was also kind of, in this case, the publisher did help with production, but it actually did not help them with the whole social media stuff. And that way they kind of lost track of things.
That's not that unusual. I mean, there are 600 publishers out there that I know of, and they don't all have all the answers. I mean, that's just the reality of it. And so it's one of those things that, when a developer is going through and looking at their options for a publisher, they have to keep in mind they don't all have gigantic lists of influencers and PR and all of that sort of stuff.
I agree, but this wasn't sure, at least the size of Team 17, and we're talking about an investment of $1 million that goes into the game for the development itself. So I would, perhaps just me, but I would expect them more also on the marketing, PR, social media side.
So we've actually done deals in the past where, when we had a publisher like that, we basically sectioned off who's responsible for what in the agreement. So it was like, okay, the publisher is going to be putting in money and they're going to be, handling some production support and all this other stuff, but the developer is going to be handling the PR and the marketing side of it because they have better access on that side. We did that with a mobile game a couple of years back that had a major license on it. And it was good because the publisher was open and they're like, look, we haven't handled a lot of free-to-play games in the past, and this developer had, and so it was a good relationship because both sides were very honest with one another. And they said, look, this is what I'm good at. This is what you're good at. Let's not just take and jump into this as a standard, so to speak, boilerplate agreement. Let's focus on what we do well and go from there. So if you qualify your publisher early on and understand what they're good at and what they're not good at, it's easier to have those open conversations and say, look, where's
you
your
can adapt.
Yep.
True.
Figure out where you need to be.
Well, I think in this case that I'm mentioning is that the developer was relatively, and I think they trusted their publisher a bit more in that regard. They should have been more on top of things for, hey, how are things going? So, as we all know, it's quite overwhelming, the whole industry. And that's kind of the thing that keeps on popping back over and over again, not mentioning the way more youthful developers out there who are totally lost. It like you said, they come up 1 week before launching, hey, can we get some help?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's one of the things too that, and I understand, a lot of developers are going to trust that publisher. It's like, okay, you're the publisher. You should know how to do this. I'm going to leave it at that and go with it. But, as a developer, you constantly have to be monitoring everything, and understanding there needs to be a good amount of transparency and, conversation both ways. But it's pretty easy to set up, even a Google alert that notifies you when, something about your game hits the internet. And so if you've got a Google alert set up and then you're, tracking on, the hashtags or the URLs or whatever it may be on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, it's not overbearing to be able to monitor that and, then be able to respectfully say, hey, look, we're launching in 2 weeks and I haven't even seen a press release. It's one of those things that, you have to
Stay on top of.
As a developer, you have to stay on top of,
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. Well, yeah, but it's more that's a kind of the problem that too many developers are young. They just quit school or are even still in school, and they are kind of already overwhelmed with stuff they have to do at that moment. And you see more people who are later on into the industry who have less of a problem. So many developers who are past their 30s and just start to be a game dev for the first time, they have a way higher chance of succeeding in this industry because they are way more aware of how much more there is to running a company apart from it being a game studio or something like that. But yeah.
And that's why we do this show. We don't want those developers to, learn the stuff the way we had to learn it in terms of, just getting burned constantly and, having things go sideways. Things are always going to go sideways, but you have to own up and take some responsibility and monitor this stuff. And I think I told this story before, but we had a client at GDC several years ago, and they absolutely took one of the publishers to task on, and this was like the CEO of a big Japanese publisher, and we're sitting in this meeting, and the developer went through a list, and outlined all the things that had been not handled or handled poorly, and with no fear. And you need to be able to do that. If your publisher is going to be so thin-skinned, to take criticism and take questions, that it's one of those things. It's just like, maybe they're not the best publisher for you. So, but
I agree. I think perhaps most funny is when I worked for the company called Extramedia. Broadly said, we were more kind of an intern farm. You could say a little bit like we had like 50 interns in just 18 months, to give you an idea. But I've been talking a lot with the teachers, because I really want to help those guys out in multiple ways. And what kept on shocking me is that, is that the kids already had more than enough challenges with just understanding the own thing that they were doing. So just a programmer. And so from that regard, like I said, most of them are so young, they are finally glad that they at least understood their own part of the whole, the whole creating a game itself. So,
and that's good, and I understand it. But you still have to own up and take responsibility here.
That's true, but what I'm trying to say is that the school, at the schools, they weren't mentioning this. They were like, yeah, that's not our problem. One of those intern instructors literally told me when I was talking about them that they were not prepared about the whole business stuff. They were like, yeah, we know, but it's not our responsibility.
It is their responsibility. If you're going to teach a kid how to code, program, produce, draw, whatever, and then kick them out into the industry, they need to have at least a basic understanding of how that industry works.
I personally agree, but like for example, in the Netherlands, we had an article written and there are 1,500, let's say, kids finishing their study every year, out of which 1,000 cannot do anything else but work for the industry, because what they've learned, craft, is only meant for in the games industry, and there are only like 60 jobs per year available. Yeah. So that's
it's brutally competitive. I mean, without a doubt. I mean, we see that year in and year out. But a lot of these universities frustrate me, and that's why I'm working with one of the local ones, because it's like you need to be able to show that. I mean, look, when you go through general university, there are set classes that you have to take. Here in the U.S., you've got your liberal arts classes. You need to be taking at least a math, a science, and a language, and these are core and fundamental to getting your degree. The same should be true for a reputable college or university, kicking these kids out into the world with a piece of paper that says they're a game designer. They need to take a business class. They need to take a basic coding class. They need to take a basic, design class, because otherwise you don't know what you're getting into, and you don't know how to communicate with the other people on your team.
I couldn't agree more, and that's what I like about Hergy, the owner of a company called Lucky Cat Studios in Den Haag, and he actually first got his MBA, his studio. So he took the opposite.
You're gonna let your mom get on that ladder all by herself?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's called emancipation.
Serene, welcome. Thank you so much. How's it going?
Hey, Shri. Language, mom. Language.
Okay.
You can also teach them how to write
Good.
project proposals. Well, you know what? I feel like also schools, they teach you like skills, but they don't teach you life skills. You know, sure you learn math and writing and whatever, but they should teach things like how to operate within a hierarchy of a business, or how to communicate in business. There's a lot of different things that you just end up learning that they should definitely teach. I
always say that I learned a lot in college and very little of it was in the classroom.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you have to have a license to learn how to drive. Maybe you should get a license to have a baby. You know what I mean? It's like,
wait, hold on a second. My green screen's picking. That's pretty cool. Anyway, me playing with my green screen. All right, I'm gonna cheat here, and I'm gonna pull in a question that we had actually that Heiny had on his server under their general business talk, and I don't think the author is here in the show, so I'll just paste it, in chat so folks can see. And for the folks that are on the podcast that doesn't exactly exist right now, we'll do that too. He says, what do you think about it? It seems publishers do have too much power over developers. I never thought they were allowed to do such exclusive publishing deals without the developers even knowing they did it behind their backs. And he's talking about the Epic Store. I've got my response. Do you want me to go first, or what do the two of you think?
Go ahead. I haven't been following that. I've just been reading tweets about it, so I don't know actual facts.
What I pointed out is that when these publishing contracts are done, the publishers typically have the right to exclusive distribution over retail and digital. The developers are still getting that money though. It's not like Epic is paying an advance to XYZ publisher that the developer is never going to see. It's the money that Epic is shelling out to get these exclusives are called advanced guarantees, or guaranteed advance, one or the other. Anyway, they're advances on royalties. So instead of waiting a year and you sold 1 million copies to get your money, what Epic is doing is saying, look, we think you're going to sell at least 1 million copies. So here's the money for those royalties or rev shares or whatever you want to call it up front. And then it goes through in that. But, at the end of the day, the companies that are doing this are generally paying for the development of these games, and they have the right to do it. And I pointed out, there are publishers who are going to have that conversation with the developer and say, listen, we're going to do an exclusive. Here's why we're going to do it. What do you think? But companies like Ubisoft aren't going to do that. One, they probably own the studio that's doing the development. And if they don't, they chunked enough money into the development of it that they're not going to run back and ask the developer for every single thing.
Mm-hmm. And it depends from the publisher. They know how to get their way no matter what. Already put it down in their contract, of course. I've been talking with some developers. This publisher only wants us to publish, that they control everything concerning Steam or digital and others, but they're not taking control in Japan or not physical or over consoles. So it depends from here and there. It's kind of what you with the marketing social media. It's also part your responsibility to know what you're getting into and what you're asking.
You cut out there for a second.
Oh, so like what you said, with developer responsible with asking the right questions when it comes to marketing, PR stuff. I think in this case, it's the same.
It is. It's one of those things that, again, you have to qualify that publisher and understand what you're getting into. And now that this is becoming more prevalent again, and I say again because this is how shit was done in the industry for years. The fact that, Steam has had a lock on PC digital distribution for a year to, sorry, I got a message in the middle of that and it completely derailed my thoughts. But, Steam has had a lock on the PC side for so long that people forget this. And my question is always, so you don't like store exclusives, so tell me about that time that you played Mario Kart on your Xbox. These things happen, they've always happened, but we haven't seen it on the PC side in a very long time, and gamers are getting a little upset about it. But it's the way the industry goes. This is what happens. This is business. And so, you need to go in, and when you're talking to your publisher, you say, hey, look, we don't like the idea of a, exclusive with one store, and then get their feedback on it, and see what they're thinking. The reason Epic is getting these exclusives is because they're paying a ton of money up front. And my bet is that within 12 months, we're going to see Steam doing the exact same thing because they have to.
I just don't see the real problem for the users themselves, because it's not like when you're going to the store or that you need to buy new hardware like it is with the consoles.
Come on.
So, but from the developer's point, I get it, but I presume a bunch of money in return.
Sorry.
Did you hear my reply? Or?
It's raining outside, so my assistant is like, I want to go in, I want to come out, I want to go in, I want to come out, and so she's about to get locked down over here and be like, you're not going anywhere.
But you didn't hear my reply, right?
No, but give me the short version of it again.
Well, basically that for the users it shouldn't be any problem, because you don't have to play on GOG or on Epic, whatever. It's not like an exclusivity to a certain console, so to say. So, and for the developer, I think, well, like you said, they will pay a buttload of money up front, so I do presume it will end up in the hands of the developer. I would think so.
I mean, to me, it's not that big of an ask to have a separate launcher on your desktop, and if it really is that big of a hindrance to you, there are ways that you can incorporate, games that you bought on Epic or games that you bought on Discord into your Steam library. It's not rocket science. But like you said, it's not like you're having to go out and pay $500 for a new console to play a game either. You have to download a different installer.
Exactly, and the PC gamers are overall than the console.
I think they're much more sensitive to it because they haven't had to, deal with it in so long. So, Elrounds says, is this moving the industry closer to software as a service? I mean, I would argue we're already at software as a service.
Well, for me, concerning the software, because you guys know I work for, I absolutely believe it's the future. Also, like with Google Stadia, it just needs to develop more, be more embraced by the audience. So yeah, I just hope one thing, because worrying me for the developers, is that since most platforms are aiming for the same demographic, it just means that every new player in town just takes the same pie divided in more pieces, and this way all the developers just have to do more work to get the same audience to get their attention. So marketing will only get more expensive to get the same result in the end, I'm afraid, if things continue as they do, instead of them all working harder to get a new demographic. Because I think outside of the 16 up till 36. I think there are so many more players. I think Japan is a good example of that, but they're all too much kind of trying to get the same people.
And see, and that's one of the things. I mean, part of it goes back to people in general are inherently selfish, and they think about their own situation before anyone else's, and that's just that's just human nature. It's like Noonbat just said, in 6 months people will forget they were ever angry about it, and they will. And you know how we know that? Because Steam had all these same issues when they first launched, and everybody ranted and raved and pitched fits because they had to install Steam to play Half-Life. And now, 12 years later, 10 years later, however far along the timeline we are, they're defending Steam against somebody else. Epic Store wasn't planned, a year ago. They literally said, okay, we're going to do this, and they did it, and they're still iterating on it. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles of a Steam store because it hasn't been out long enough. It'll get there. Now, Tim said today they're not going to have trading cards or things like that in it. That's fair enough. That's a huge market for, a lot of people don't realize how much money is made in that trading card market on Steam. But, there's good reason for that. But yeah, I mean, I think so too. In a couple of years, people aren't going to be angry about it anymore. But, thinking outside of your own situation, this growth is great, for the industry in general. Having multiple companies competing like this is wonderful. We've had multiple stores for years, but I mean, frankly, a lot of them were just selling Steam keys, so it doesn't really help anyone. And now we're seeing, Steam step up their game. Like we talked on Wednesday about, when we had the Fail Better folks on, and now on Steam, you can actually, instead of someone just following your game, they can follow your company, which is great. That's a fantastic thing that, I don't know that it would have been implemented were it not for Steam looking around and going, oh crap, now we have other people to compete against.
Yeah, I think Steam doesn't have to work, at least not in getting money. They're already earning so much money and have been doing so much in the past. But they will, I do still believe they will have to step up their game in multiple ways, like in the royalties section. Just to give them an example, what they've offered so far doesn't really change anything for 99% of the developers.
Yeah, they're
platform.
Exactly. That helps them bring in more of the big publishers. They don't want to lose another Ubisoft. So they, jacked up the rev share to those companies if you sell over 1 million copies, but a lot of these companies aren't selling over 1 million copies. Or 5 million or 10 million or whatever the number was. It was like astronomically high for an indie team. So for the indie developers out there, it is important that you sit down and you understand the ecosystem and say, okay, I need to release on Steam, but I also need to plan for itch or for the Discord store or Epic or whoever else pops up in the next few months, because that's going to be part of it. The same way that if you had a retail game, you didn't just sell your game at GameStop. You sold your game at Best Buy and Walmart, and Target, and all these other places too. That's the world that we're in right now, and that's what people have to be aware of.
What I hope for the future, they will, at least some of the platforms will do things differently, like what I said, target for a different demographic. That will benefit all developers in the end, and so also all the people involved with those developers. That would also be great as a way to compete and see what else get from. But the problem I've had so far is that a lot of people, if PC gaming would even be more friendly. Like, let's say you just take an average family with dad, mom working hard, and they get home, and let's say if they want to play a video game, one does not simply just turn on a PC and play a game. You have to install hardware. You have to know what hardware to get. If some way we can also make that part easier, there are way more people playing PC games. And for now, there are console games, but basically their hardware should be good enough. So for all platforms related to PC games, this is something where there's a lot to gain from for them. Because how many great on a 6-7-year-old laptop?
Yeah.
Okay, we have comments in the chat. Is it moving the industry closer to software as a subscription? Software as a service.
You're behind it. We already did that
one. So do you believe Amazon will have a store app? Because they've started with the game engine in order to get exclusive games.
Amazon has a store app. No one uses it. It's called Twitch. That's the Twitch executable is their store app.
Yeah.
You know, and someone asked me the other day about WeChat. One of our friends over at the IGDB. And I said, what do you think about the WeChat news? And I was like, what do you mean? Or WeGame or whatever they're calling it. And it's the store from Tencent, which has been in China for years, but now they've opened it to the rest of the world. They've just done so kind of quietly. And, you know, if anyone, this is where I get so much frustration with Amazon. If anyone for the last decade has been able to unseat Steam as, you know, the go-to digital distribution store, it's Amazon. But they haven't done it. You know, and I've said it over and over, and they've yet to prove me wrong. They don't get games. You know, they went and bought Gamebryo or whatever Gamebryo became to have their own engine internally. And how many games have come out on that engine that everybody's like, oh my God, we need to go, you know, we need to use this engine. And they put the perk in there that said, you know, if you use our engine, then, you know, your AWS backend is free or reduced. I forget the actual terms, but no one's using it. I mean, you still have Unity, Unreal, Godot, and hell, I'd put RPG Maker probably ahead of the number of people that are.
Yeah, Game Maker. Isn't it called Avalanche?
Yeah,
isn't that the Amazon? It's called Avalanche, I think.
Yeah, that's it. But it's basically.
What was the lumberjack thing?
Oh, it is. Is it? I don't know. It's Lumberjack, Avalanche, something. Obviously, the fact that we don't know means nobody's using it. But you know, they don't get it. You know, they haven't gotten it for a decade. You know, WeChat or whatever Tencent store is called. I'll Google that real quick. They've got a chance to, you know, put a dent in Steam as well, simply due to the number of, you know, people that are already using it.
Except for the fact that the only people in the U.S. that use WeChat is if they are communicating with an Asian company.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's what it's called. It's called WeGame. So they're keeping the same like
Lumberyard. That's it. Amazon Lumberyard.
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, it is. It's a difficult engine to use, and the docs aren't complete because they don't get games. They you know, they bought this thing and they're like, okay, everybody use it now, and it's like no one sat down and went, okay, this is a mess. You know, what do we need to do to get this straight? And they've released 2 or 3 games over the last couple of years that use it and that integrate all this stuff from Twitch, but nobody plays them. I mean, they don't last. And I've seen a wealth of very talented people that I respect highly go over to Amazon, and they basically stay 2 years and leave. You know, because it's Amazon doesn't get it. Amazon tries to run a video game company like they try to run a let's put stuff in a box and send it to people's houses company, and it's not the same.
It's kind of funny when you talk about this. It reminds me a lot. I've been talking with the guys from Zodiac Interactive. They are a Chinese studio, but one of the founders is from Ireland. So I've been talking a lot with a guy from Ireland, Chinese guys, really smart person. but they kind of have the same problem with the Chinese market, in which they don't get the West, but the West also don't get China in how to get on their market Chinese games to the Western market, and how to actually even create a game, because they can make a lot of pretty stuff, but they don't get gameplay. I think it's really interesting. So how there's a buttload of mismatches in that regard.
And so I think that's the reason that, Wii game is probably starting off a little slower with the rest of the world. Just because, for years it was like, okay, you could release a game in North America and Europe, but if you wanted to release it in Japan, you needed somebody that really knew what they were doing to help not only with localization, but with culturalization. And I'm going to make up a word here, business modelization, because players in Japan play games differently than players in the US and Europe do. They monetize differently. Absolutely. We see the very same thing with China now. It's like, you can't just go, I'm going to publish my game in China, because it's not going to work. We see situations where, like Megacrit and Slay the Spire, where they have a Chinese localization. They aren't technically publishing in China. They're publishing on Steam with a Chinese localization of the game. But they, every now and then you see somebody have a huge amount of success with that. But by and large, yeah, you're right. It's like the Chinese market doesn't fully understand how to, hit our markets and vice versa. And so that's my recommendation. And I was talking to a developer yesterday about this. It's, if you want to go to China, find a Chinese publisher. Don't try to self-publish in China from North America or Europe, because it's not the same. You're not going to get nearly the level of success.
Did I ever talk with you guys about the time that I went to Japan? Don't get how their own market is doing so well with mobile phones, but what happens to them, you can't just put it on any other country in the world? I didn't tell you?
Oh.
Okay, well, let me just say,
I lost you in there again.
Yeah, your mic cuts out. It's like it's at time your voice isn't loud enough to pick you up there.
Sorry. Let me just change some things here. This should work. So basically, what I want to say is that with Japan, there's Japanese don't get the
still cutting out.
Market.
Do you have that mic pointed at you, or? Oh, it's a Blue Yeti. That's why you're not supposed to talk into the top of it.
I did that for a long time too, before Indy.
Yeah, you're talking to the front of it, not the top.
You got to turn it like this and talk into it like you're talking into the fat part.
You hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys hear me, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Another thing learned. So what I want to say is about the Japanese, that the way their culture influences the way people play games so much that you can't learn how it works in Japan and just roll it out in the world. For example, like the Netherlands, where I live, we have like 16% of the people daily use public transport. It's the second highest amount of people in the world doing that. And in Japan, it's 33%, way higher. But the mobile market is just insane there, how well things go. So one of the Japanese guys gave an introduction presentation about it at the embassy, at the Dutch embassy, but they didn't get why things were different. So how it was possible, just that it was, and they hope to do the same thing in Europe. So then I had to explain them what their difference was, because for me it was very obvious, being an outsider getting to Japan. And the main difference is, like I said, they have 33% of the people using public transport, which is way higher than any other country in the world. And on top of that, in their culture, it's not nice to talk while being in public transport or to eat in public transport. So all the people are playing with their phones because there's nothing else to do. And that's why even old people, young people, it doesn't matter, they play on their phones. And that's why it's such a big thing in Japan, the culture is highly influential in this regard.
We got a comment in the chat from Albrown the Destroyer. It's part of Chinese culture to borrow from popular ideas but not to innovate on them, so there is a lack of iterative design in their games, causing lackluster gameplay.
I would argue against that. There's a lot of cool games that have come out of China, and they may, it depends on how much you want to say they're not innovating. How much do you innovate a MOBA before it's not a MOBA anymore? But due to the sheer amount of success with some of these games that you see coming out of China, even when they come over and compete here in North America, they do understand game design. But it's like Heiny said, game design in China is different than game design in Japan is different than game design in the Western parts of the world. So there is a big problem with the borrowing, so to speak. But that's due to Chinese copyright law and the fact that you can basically go and create an entire World of Warcraft themed amusement park and no one can really do anything about it. But, there are some really, really good games that have come out of China and Japan. But you just have to realize that it's a different market, it's a different culture. They're not made to be as appealing to U.S. and European players as other games are.
Well, it could also be that if you take in mind that there are, of course, way, way, way more Chinese people than there are European people from America together, United States. So it might also be because there are so many people, and also a lot of people making games that even with a small percentage, still end up with a lot of great games. So in the end, still the percentage is lower than here, for instance, but it still looks as if a lot of games are coming in, since they're just being made in such high amounts. Could be.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, that was my alarm. I've got to go. I've got to go get ready to pick up Mini-Me. So, any other final thought? Where do you think, just kind of tying this all back together, where do you think the indie game dev market is now versus, a year or 2 years ago, Heiny?
I think it's in some ways exactly at the same point, and just won't grow up because as soon as people made their first and they failed, they just get out, and the new guys who just finished their school pick up the pace and try again. And there's not enough places, hotspots, or whatever you need to keep the information, the knowledge, games, keep it among the people. Like in any other industry, if you have a company that works and suddenly other companies start copying that, or people from the company start their own company and they take all that knowledge with them. And often when people quit school and they get to one of these, so basically what we were saying is that there's a lot of things are still the same, in which the industry isn't evolving much, but in some ways I agree we are, but should have been further and we really need I think we still need more of organizations who look at it like that, because the organizations that are out there at this moment do not really help in the whole professionalizing the industry, but they're too much looking at original stuff, I think, and we need more focus on the business stuff.
Yeah, no, I agree. It has evolved. It hasn't evolved as much as we would all like to see, but at the same time, it's evolved more in the last 2 years than it has in probably the previous 5. So that's a good thing. But anyway, Heiny, thank you for joining us today. We always love having you on.
For having me.
Yeah.
And so,
hang with Heiny.
That's all I got. If I'll throw the link up there.
Talk about the conference.
Yeah, so we got over 100 developers, publishers. I don't know. I can't type and talk. Over 100 developers, publishers, marketing companies, tech companies, all of the above at the show starting next week. If you need a ticket, there's the link where you can go. It's just simply indiegame.business. We'll take you over and you can grab a ticket for as cheap as $100. And then you start setting up meetings with these companies. And, we're very excited. And yes, it's something we're going to do again. I can already tell you that just from the, level of participation that we've seen so far. So join us. And otherwise, we'll be back Wednesday.
Friday. Oh, yeah, Wednesday. Today is Friday. Duh.
Yes, today is
So
Friday.
we'll be back Wednesday talking about the event.
Yes. Hopefully I will have had some sleep by then.
You all have a good weekend.
You too. Bye,
everybody.
Heiny. Bye, Heiny's mom.
Bye, Heiny's mom.
Zeg dag tegen je.
Doei!
Bye.
Dan zit ik het al